What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The world you knew shattered in a second, and all you could do was watch as life kept moving without you. Jack Harper never imagined his future would be lived from a wheelchair, dependent on machines and nurses for even the smallest gestures. Once a confident, energetic man who raced mountain bikes on the weekends and led tech development teams by day, Jack now stared at a ceiling for hours, his body unresponsive, trapped in a shell of memory. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. All he had left was thought. But sometimes, thought alone can spark revolutions. Jack's story doesn't begin with triumph. It begins with despair. The accident happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon. He was heading home from work, a podcast buzzing in the background, fingers drumming on the steering wheel. An intersection, a red light runner, metal crushing metal, the violence of it instant and unforgettable. He woke up in a hospital bed, machines beeping around him, a soft hum of fluorescent lighting above, and a quiet voice telling him, "You're safe. But your spinal cord, it's damaged." That word echoed. Damaged. It felt permanent, like a scar sealed into the rest of his life. The weeks that followed were a blur of questions, surgeries, and whispered consultations. His sister Mia flew in from Portland and stayed by his side, trying to remain brave even as tears welled up in her eyes. "We're going to figure this out," she told him over and over, gripping his hand he couldn't feel. The truth was, no one knew what would happen. Jack couldn't move from the neck down. The diagnosis, complete quadriplegia. He couldn't hold a pen, let alone rebuild his life. At first, he fought. Inside his head, he screamed. He imagined walking again. He imagined the doctors were wrong. But weeks turned to months, and the hope that once kept him going became a bitter taste in his mouth. Nurses came and went. Therapists spoke to him slowly, like he was a child. Friends stopped visiting. Mia stayed. She was always there, reading aloud articles from Wired or Scientific American, anything that might stir his interest. One afternoon, she paused and said, "Have you heard of Neuralink?" Of course he had. Elon Musk's brain-computer interface startup had been a subject of debate, excitement, and skepticism for years. But Mia's tone was different. "They're doing clinical trials. Human subjects. There's this guy, he couldn't move a finger. But now he's controlling a computer with his mind." Jack didn't blink. He couldn't show excitement. But inside, something shifted. Could this be real? Could he become more than a patient, more than a silent observer in a life moving without him? "They're looking for candidates," she added, almost whispering. "And your doctors think you might qualify." Still, Jack hesitated. The idea of surgery on his brain, of becoming a lab rat for a tech billionaire's science experiment, it terrified him. But so did the alternative, nothing. No change. No future. He stared at the ceiling for 3 days, thinking. Imagining. Weighing risk and reward in a body that refused to obey. Then he said yes. The process moved fast after that. Tests, scans, psychological evaluations. The Neuralink team visited him, a mix of doctors and engineers, all speaking in a strange hybrid of medical jargon and Silicon Valley optimism. They explained the device, a tiny chip implanted in the skull, with ultra-thin threads that interface directly with the brain's motor cortex. "Think of it like a Bluetooth connection between your mind and a computer," one of the engineers explained. "Your body might not move, but your thoughts still fire. And we can catch those signals." Jack listened. He asked questions with his eyes, using the blinking code he had learned in rehab. Mia translated, her voice trembling with hope. Finally, the date was set. The night before the surgery, Jack lay awake in the dark hospital room, the hum of machines around him, his mind buzzing louder than ever. Could this work? Would he wake up changed? Or not wake up at all? Mia sat beside him, scrolling through old photos on her phone, laughing softly at memories they both held. "You remember this?" she asked, holding up a shot of them on a hiking trail, arms raised in victory. Jack blinked twice, yes. A tear slipped down his cheek. "You're going to do something amazing tomorrow," she said, leaning close. "Even if you don't believe it yet." The morning came with sterile lights and the scent of antiseptic. Doctors prepped him, nurses murmured final checks, and a Neuralink technician adjusted a laptop nearby. Jack was conscious for the beginning, sedated but aware. They drilled into his skull with surgical precision, threading the device's fibers into his brain tissue like weaving hair through a needle. It took hours. When he awoke, there was pain. Dull and pulsing. But also, a silence broken. A strange new presence. He couldn't explain it, but something was different. Over the next few days, the Neuralink team ran tests. Simple at first. Jack was told to imagine moving a cursor on a screen. Think, not try. Just think. The screen lit up. Slowly, haltingly, the cursor moved. Mia gasped. Jack tried again. The cursor jerked to the right. Then left. The tech's eyes widened. "We're getting signal." Jack blinked. Again. Again. The movement became smoother. With his thoughts alone, Jack typed out his first sentence in 8 months. "Hi Mia." She burst into tears. That night, Jack stared at the monitor, watching his thoughts translated into motion. It was clumsy. Imperfect. But it was something. For the first time in months, he had acted. As word spread through the hospital and beyond, the Neuralink team grew more excited. More tests. More experiments. Jack was taught to open apps, turn lights on and off in his hospital room, even move a robotic arm to sip water. He failed often. But each small success felt monumental. The media caught wind. Journalists requested interviews. Elon Musk himself sent a message, congratulating him. Jack, ever the introvert, remained focused. This wasn't about fame. This was about freedom. Each day, he improved. The interface learned from him, and he learned from it. One afternoon, Mia handed him a tablet. Jack stared at it. He thought about flipping through photos. And the gallery opened. One by one, memories danced across the screen. He blinked. He smiled inside. His story was becoming real. For the first time in a long time, he had a future to imagine. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Before the silence of his injury, Jack Harper's life had been full of sound. The clack of his keyboard at 2 a.m. during coding sprints, the crunch of gravel beneath his tires during early morning bike rides, the hum of downtown Los Angeles as he raced down city streets with his AirPods in, lost in podcasts and possibility. Jack wasn't just a man of ambition, he was a man who ran toward it. His friends often joked that he didn't walk, didn't slow down. He built apps in college that got picked up by startups, graduated top of his class in computer science, and landed his first six-figure job at 24. He was the kind of person who filled whiteboards with ideas, always 2 steps ahead of the conversation. But behind all the brilliance was something more human. He was the older brother who fixed bikes and made terrible jokes. The friend who stayed late helping with presentations and always had a backup plan in his back pocket. The son who, after his parents passed in a sudden fire when he was 21, took custody of his teenage sister without blinking. That was Jack before the accident, fearless, focused, sometimes infuriatingly confident. And Mia was his anchor. Just 13 when their parents died, Mia became the center of Jack's universe overnight. He rearranged his entire life, moved to a smaller apartment, declined promotions that required travel, and put his name on every school form and emergency contact list. He helped her with homework, took her to soccer practice, and cried the first time she called him Dad by accident. He never corrected her. They were a team, a quiet family stitched together by loss and love. So when Jack's world shattered in that instant at the intersection, it wasn't just his life that changed, it was Mia's too. She was 25 by then, finishing up grad school in Portland, studying environmental engineering. One phone call and she was on a flight, eyes swollen with tears and hands shaking as she filled out hospital forms she'd never wanted to see again. Jack's condition was incomprehensible. Mia had seen broken bones, scraped knees, even stitches from biking accidents, but this? Machines breathing for him, wires trailing from his head and chest, his body limp under layers of medical cloth. She held his hand and whispered promises, even when he couldn't respond. "You're not alone," she told him, over and over. "Not ever." The doctors said recovery was possible, sort of. They explained the levels of spinal cord injury, the difference between incomplete and complete paralysis, the low odds. Jack had suffered a complete C4, C5 injury. No voluntary movement from the shoulders down. No hand control. No walking. No independence. The only muscles still under his command were the ones in his face, and even that was shaky at first. He blinked yes or no. Sometimes he cried, though no one ever saw it but Mia. At first, Jack tried to keep up the image of control. He'd been the rock for so long. But slowly, the trauma carved into his psyche. The humiliation of sponge baths. The endless cycle of asking for help with the most basic needs. The grief of losing movement, then privacy, then dignity. Therapists came and went. Some tried light-hearted games. Others tried silence. Jack responded to none of them. He didn't want kindness. He wanted his body back. Anger became his companion. He'd fixate on small things, a light left on, a nurse who spoke too loudly, a doctor's casual mention of acceptance. Accept what? That he was a burden now? That he'd never climb a hill again? That the future was now a stretch of sterile walls and wheelchair ramps? Mia stayed through it all. She adjusted her classes to be remote, then deferred altogether. She learned how to operate his wheelchair. She memorized his medication schedule. She read journal articles and wrote emails to researchers, anything that might point to a way out of the nightmare. That's how she found Neuralink. A research update buried in a tech journal mentioned a new round of human trials for a brain-computer interface designed to restore mobility and communication for paralyzed individuals. She clicked the link. Then another. Then another. The more she read, the more the impossible began to shimmer on the horizon. She didn't tell Jack right away. She knew how he would react, skeptical, sarcastic, maybe even angry. But she brought it up slowly, weaving it into conversation while reading to him one afternoon. He blinked twice. She kept going. Over the next few days, she noticed a shift in his eyes, more alert, more curious. Jack began to ask questions with blinks. Then with eye movement across an alphabet board. Then, finally, with the crude eye-tracking software on a donated tablet. Neuralink. He wrote it himself one night. Just the word. The spark had returned. When the Neuralink team arrived for their initial evaluation, Jack was silent at first. He watched them, scanned their expressions, listened as they explained what the device could and couldn't do. Mia sat beside him, translating questions and answers, her voice full of cautious hope. "He wants to know what happens if it doesn't work," she said, after Jack spent a minute spelling out the sentence. The lead neuroscientist. A calm woman named Dr. Avery, answered gently. Then we try again. And we keep learning. Jack blinked. Then again. Agreement. That was all they needed. Jack's past, while far from the world of biotech, made him a near-perfect candidate. His sharp mind, his background in tech, his resilience, all of it made him an ideal test subject. And that word, subject, sat heavily in his mind. He didn't want to be a test case. He wanted to be human again. Over the following weeks, preparations began. Jack underwent a battery of tests, MRIs, EEGs, cognitive mapping. He met with a neuropsychologist to evaluate his mental resilience. "You've been through a trauma most people can't even imagine," she said softly during one session. "But you've held on. That matters." Jack said nothing. But he stared straight ahead, unblinking, as if daring her to stop believing in him. She didn't. He passed every test. Or at least, passed enough to get clearance. The night before surgery, Mia stayed late, sitting beside him in the dim hospital room. She told stories from childhood, camping trips, 4th of July fireworks, the time he built her a treehouse out of scrap wood and forgotten screws. Jack's chest trembled with something close to laughter. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "No matter what happens, you've already done something incredible." Jack didn't cry, but his eyes stayed wet long after she left. He knew he might not wake up. But he also knew he couldn't live like this forever. He needed more than existence. He needed agency. And in the stillness of that sterile room, he dared to want it. The next morning, as orderlies wheeled him into the surgical wing, his thoughts ran faster than ever. Not fear. Not exactly. It was something closer to electricity. Anticipation. The Neuralink team met him in the operating room. Dr. Avery smiled gently and squeezed his shoulder. "We're going to do this together," she said. Jack blinked once. Ready. As anesthesia flooded his system and the world slipped into haze, Jack imagined movement. His fingers tapping a keyboard. His legs sprinting uphill. He pictured Mia's face, lit by sunlight, laughing. The last thought he had before the darkness was a simple one: this isn't the end. It's the start of something new. The days following the surgery felt unreal. Jack Harper had expected pain. He'd braced for nausea, for disorientation, even for the possibility that nothing would change. But what he hadn't prepared for was the silence. Not the physical kind. Machines still beeped in rhythm, nurses still whispered in corridors, and Mia still read to him like she had for months. No, this was a different silence. It was a stillness inside his mind, as if some unknown door had opened, and for the first time, there was space to move within his own thoughts. The Neuralink implant, a coin-sized device embedded beneath his skull, wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a new kind of mirror. A reflection not of what he was, but what he could become. At first, the team ran basic calibrations. The interface connected to an external tablet, showing digital waveforms of Jack's brain activity. "Just think about moving your right hand," Dr. Avery had said during one of the early sessions. Jack had tried. And the lines had spiked, erratic but unmistakable. A room full of specialists leaned forward, watching as patterns formed and dissipated on the screen. It was clumsy. His concentration faded quickly, and the signal dropped. But something had happened. That night, Jack lay awake, staring at the ceiling, processing what it meant. His body still hadn't moved. Not even a twitch. But for the first time, his brain had reached beyond itself. It had spoken in a new language. The next day, they tried again. This time, with visuals. A digital interface appeared on the tablet screen, a simple square with a dot in the center. "Imagine pushing it left," the technician said. Jack focused. Nothing. Again. He tried. The dot trembled. Then shifted, just a pixel. Cheers erupted in the room. Jack blinked, surprised. He tried again. The dot moved further. His heart raced. Mia covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." Each session built on the last. The dot became a cursor. The cursor became a letter selector. By the end of the week, Jack typed his name with his mind. Slowly. Painfully. But it was real. Jack. For letters that hadn't belonged to him in almost a year now reclaimed through pure will. The progress wasn't linear. Some days, his focus failed him. The signal dropped. His brain fatigued. Other days, it felt like he could control the entire world if the system would only let him. Dr. Avery explained the challenges. Think of your neural pathways like muscles, she said. They've atrophied in this way. But with time, practice, repetition, they'll strengthen. Jack absorbed every word. He asked questions using eye-tracking software, devouring knowledge about how the chip worked, how signals were translated into digital commands. He even made suggestions, small tweaks in the interface, layout optimizations that surprised the developers. He wasn't just a patient anymore. He was a collaborator. And yet, progress bred pressure. The media began to notice. Elon Musk tweeted a vague message about a subject showing remarkable response in a live Neuralink BCI trial. The post went viral. News outlets began speculating. A reporter even showed up at the hospital and tried to sneak onto Jack's floor. Security was tightened. Doctors held briefings. PR representatives coached Mia on what to say if approached. Jack watched it unfold with an odd sense of detachment. The world was watching him, but he was still trapped in a body that wouldn't move. One evening, Dr. Avery sat beside him after a long session. They'd spent hours training the cursor movement, and Jack had managed to open a weather app and scroll down to see the forecast. It was raining outside. He hadn't seen real weather in months. "How are you really feeling?" she asked softly. Jack stared at the screen, then used the alphabet grid to spell, overwhelmed. "But ready." She nodded. "You're doing something historic, Jack. But you're still human. It's okay to feel both." That night, he had a dream. He was running through a forest trail, wind in his face, the sound of birds in the trees. He could feel his legs moving, lungs burning, heart pounding. It was so vivid, so real, that when he woke, he forgot where he was for a moment. The disappointment came like a tidal wave. But something had changed. He hadn't dreamed like that in months. And it meant that his brain hadn't given up on him yet. Neither had Mia. She was always there, even when he told her not to be. She brought books, music, even streamed hiking videos for him to watch. "This one's in Oregon," she said during one session, as a drone shot panned over a lush green valley. "We'll go back one day. I'll carry you if I have to." Jack blinked twice. Yes. They both smiled. Neuralink's team decided it was time for the next stage, controlling physical devices. A robotic arm, built specifically for testing motor neural commands, was wheeled into Jack's room. It was sleek, matte black, and mounted on a fixed base beside his bed. "We've programmed it with a limited set of motion protocols," Dr. Avery explained. "All you have to do is think about the movement. We'll match your intent with the appropriate command." Jack stared at it. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. But it also looked like hope. The trial began. He imagined lifting his right hand. The robotic arm twitched. Not much. But enough. He tried again. The fingers flexed. A nurse gasped. Mia whispered, "Oh my God." For 10 minutes, Jack focused harder than he ever had in his life. The arm lifted off its cradle. It hovered. Then gently lowered again. Jack blinked. 3 times. Laughter burst out around the room. It was his code for, "Are you kidding me?" It became a ritual. Every day, he practiced. The robotic arm moved with more grace, more confidence. He used it to pick up small objects, a foam ball, a spoon, even a stylus he used to tap the tablet. Then came the big test. A framed photo of Mia and Jack, taken 2 years before the accident, was placed on the tray table beside him. The arm reached out, slowly, carefully, and lifted the frame. Jack guided it toward him. The hand tilted the frame until he could see it. Jack blinked once. Then again. Then again. He cried silently as everyone in the room watched. The moment meant more than technology. It meant memory. It meant identity. It meant that despite everything he'd lost, some part of who he was had survived. That evening, Mia stayed late. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. Jack used the tablet to type out a sentence, "I think I'm coming back." She touched his forehead. "You never left." Outside the hospital room, the world buzzed with stories of what Neuralink had done. But inside, between a man, a machine, and a woman who never stopped believing, something far greater was happening. The human spirit, frustrated, battered, humiliated, was finding its footing again. Not by walking. Not yet. But by reaching. The air in the room seemed different now. Electric. The kind of quiet that isn't silence, but expectation. Jack Harper had done something nobody else on Earth had ever done quite like this, not just moved a robotic arm with his mind, but shown what was possible when hope fused with technology. Everyone in the hospital called it progress. Neuralink called it a milestone. But to Jack, it was just the beginning of a new kind of journey, one where the road ahead wasn't physical, but mental. And it wasn't going to be easy. A week after he manipulated the robotic arm to hold the photo of him and Mia, the team introduced a new interface, a smart home integration system, designed to allow Jack to control his hospital room environment using Neuralink alone. Lights. Television. Air conditioning. Door locks. Everything was now within reach, if he could master the commands. "We've mapped your most consistent neural patterns to certain input signals," Dr. Avery explained. "Think of it like assigning keyboard shortcuts, but with your brain." It was trial and error at first. Jack had to learn how to keep his mental focus tight enough to send a clear command, but not so forceful that the signal broke apart. His frustration came fast. He could feel his intent, he knew what he wanted to do, but sometimes the system didn't respond, or worse, misfired. One afternoon, while trying to dim the lights, he accidentally turned the television on full volume and changed the channel to a cartoon marathon. Mia burst out laughing. Jack blinked twice, then 3 times. His code for sarcasm. "Sure, this is what I wanted," he typed a moment later. But the setbacks piled up. Signal dropouts. Glitches. Moments where the interface froze or reversed commands. Dr. Avery reassured him constantly. "This is what development looks like. Your brain is learning a language it's never spoken before." Still, the failures dug into Jack's psyche. In private, he began to spiral. He feared he was only valuable as long as he was improving. If the media attention faded, if Neuralink lost interest, what would he become again? Just a man in a bed? Mia noticed his silence growing. He blinked less. Asked fewer questions. Slept more. She cornered Dr. Avery one evening. "He's burning out," she said, her voice shaking. "You've got to ease off." The next day, the team cancelled all training sessions. Instead, they brought Jack to the therapy garden on the hospital's rooftop. He hadn't seen open sky in weeks. The lift rattled as his bed was carefully wheeled out under a canopy. He squinted against the sunlight. Mia laid out a blanket and sat beside him. "No tech today," she said. "Just you and me." For an hour, they said nothing. Wind rustled the leaves. A hummingbird hovered over a flower pot. Jack blinked, slowly, letting the warmth settle into his bones. It reminded him of summers from long ago, bike rides through Griffith Park, grilled cheese sandwiches on the porch, long evenings watching stars. The world was still here. Still beautiful. Still waiting for him. That night, he dreamed again. This time, it wasn't of running. It was of building. He stood in a workshop, tools spread across a table. He was designing something, he didn't know what, but it felt important. When he woke, something clicked. He asked Mia to bring his old coding laptop. "You sure?" she asked, surprised. He blinked once. Yes. The hospital staff had to install a custom stand to mount the laptop near his eye line. The Neuralink team helped configure it so Jack could use a virtual keyboard through brain signals. It was painfully slow at first. Typing one letter took 10 seconds. But Jack was patient. Patient the way only someone who had lost everything could be. Over the next week, he wrote a program. Nothing complicated, just a feedback dashboard for signal clarity during device control. But when he showed it to Dr. Avery, she stared at the screen, stunned. "You built this using Neuralink as the input device?" Jack blinked. "Yes. You're writing software, with your brain." That moment changed everything. Jack was no longer just a subject or a patient. He was a developer again. A builder. The team gave him expanded access to the system's developer tools. He modified interfaces, optimized code execution paths, and submitted suggestions to Neuralink engineers who incorporated his edits within days. Mia called it mind coding, and the name stuck. Elon Musk tweeted the term one afternoon, first documented case of mind coding. Wild. The future is arriving. Jack didn't care about the attention. What mattered was the control. He was building tools that made the device easier, not just for him, but for whoever came next. Still, every step forward came with a test. Public interest surged. Jack was asked to appear, virtually, in a tech conference hosted in San Francisco. Neuralink wanted to showcase his progress, live. Jack hesitated. He wasn't ready to be a symbol. But Mia convinced him. "You don't have to be perfect," she said. "Just real." The day of the stream, cameras were set up in his hospital room. His face was centered on the feed. The Neuralink interface was shared on screen. Thousands of people watched as Jack, using only his thoughts, navigated a UI, opened a program, and typed, "hello" from the other side of the interface. The chat exploded. Hearts. Fire emojis. Applause. A tech journalist tweeted, "This changes everything. Accessibility. Control. Autonomy." The singularity just took a human shape. Jack blinked 3 times. Sarcasm. No pressure, he typed next. The live stream trended globally. People posted reactions, debated implications. Quadriplegic patients around the world emailed Neuralink, begging to be included in the next trial. Parents shared clips with their kids. Schools discussed the tech in ethics classes. But while the world exploded with awe, Jack's focus narrowed. He wanted more. The team advanced to multi-device control. A smart wheelchair was brought in, outfitted with directional sensors and Neuralink compatibility. "If this works," Dr. Avery said, "you won't need anyone to push you anymore." Jack blinked once. The test began. He concentrated on forward motion. The chair lurched. Then stopped. He adjusted his thoughts. The chair responded again, this time moving more smoothly. After half an hour, Jack was navigating the hallway, slowly, with stops and starts, but on his own. A nurse walked beside him, smiling. "First drive?" Jack blinked. "Like riding a bike," he typed. By the end of the week, he was navigating obstacle courses designed by the rehab team. They made jokes, put up fake stop signs, detour arrows, even cones. Jack aced them all. For the first time in over a year, he was mobile. Free. But the real test came unexpectedly. One night, a power surge hit the hospital. Lights flickered. The building system shut down momentarily. Jack's room went dark. The nurse call button didn't work. His devices shut off. Panic surged in his chest. He was trapped again. Helpless. But then, the emergency backup powered up. And Neuralink reconnected. Slowly, the lights turned back on. His interface reinitialized. Jack opened the smart home control panel and turned on his bedside lamp. It was a small moment. No one saw it. But in that instant, Jack realized just how far he'd come. He wasn't a bystander anymore. He wasn't powerless. He could act. Decide. Command. He was Jack Harper again, not just in name, but in will. Not even gravity could keep him down now. It started with a question Jack couldn't get out of his head: what if he could help someone else the way Neuralink helped him? The thought wouldn't leave him. Not during therapy. Not during tech sessions. Not even during the quiet moments when Mia read beside him or when rain tapped against the hospital window in rhythm with his heartbeat. He had spent months regaining fragments of control, clawing his way back to some semblance of agency. Now, he was hungry for purpose. It wasn't enough to move a robotic arm or type code with his brain. He needed to know it could matter. That he could matter. Jack asked Dr. Avery if there were other patients. She hesitated. There are, she said slowly. But most aren't as far along. The brain adapts differently for each person. You've progressed faster than anyone anticipated. Jack blinked once. Then asked, "Can I talk to them?" She didn't answer right away. The team debated it behind closed doors. Legal. Ethical. Medical. But eventually, permission was granted. They brought in another participant virtually, Marcus, a 29-year-old from Chicago who had been paralyzed in a motorcycle accident 2 years earlier. The video feed opened. Marcus sat propped up in bed, his expression cautious. His voice was weak but audible. "You're the guy," he said. Jack used his mind to type a message on screen, one of them. "How are you doing?" Marcus gave a tired laugh. "Trying. They say my signals aren't clean. Like static. I keep thinking, move left, but the system gets confused." Jack remembered that feeling all too well. He replied, "You're not doing it wrong. You just need practice. Think less like muscle movement and more like intention." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You figured that out on your own?" Jack blinked twice. Trial and error. For the next 20 minutes, they talked. Traded stories. Compared brainwave patterns and signal lag. It was the first time Jack felt like he belonged somewhere again. The engineers noticed too. After the call, Dr. Avery approached Jack with a cautious smile. "You helped him more in one session than our team did in a week," she said. "How would you feel about leading a support module? Peer training. Maybe even mentorship?" Jack didn't hesitate. "Yes," he typed. That decision marked the next phase in his transformation, not physical, but social. The teacher in him emerged. The leader. He began hosting weekly digital meetups with other Neuralink participants, patients from around the country, each with their own story, their own scars, their own desperate grasp at hope. Some were in early stages, unable to move a cursor. Others had progressed to environmental control, just like Jack. But all of them shared one thing: they were tired of being trapped. Jack became their bridge. He built tutorial workflows inside the interface. Created code that gave real-time feedback. Developed exercises that trained the brain to send cleaner signals. He translated his frustration into blueprints so others wouldn't have to stumble as blindly. Mia watched it unfold with awe. "You're building a community," she said one afternoon. "I'm building a way out," he corrected. Neuralink's team officially added his modules to the internal patient protocol. Soon, other developers from the company reached out directly, asking Jack to beta test updates, evaluate hardware tweaks, even weigh in on interface design. They flew in specialists to watch him work. Journalists requested interviews. A 60 Minutes producer called. Jack declined most of them. He didn't want to be a symbol. He wanted results. And they were coming fast. Neuralink installed a new generation chip in a second procedure, a wireless, low-latency upgrade that dramatically increased his response speed. The results were staggering. Tasks that took him 30 seconds now took 5. He could type a full sentence in under a minute. Navigate apps in real time. Even play simple games. Mia cried the first time she watched him beat a chess AI using only his thoughts. "You're dangerous now," she teased. "I always was," he typed. But beneath the humor was something real, confidence. For the first time since the accident, Jack began to believe he wasn't just surviving. He was evolving. He asked for a test. "Give me a challenge," he told Dr. Avery. "Something big. Something that proves this isn't just about convenience." She returned a few days later with an idea. "We've been working on drone integration," she said. Motion commands. Directional input. Want to fly one? Jack stared at the tablet where the interface was already loading. A drone sat in the hospital courtyard, cameras activated, ready for flight. He nodded. The interface displayed a 3D spatial grid. Jack focused, imagining forward thrust. The drone lifted. It rose 10 feet, hovered, then rotated. A collective gasp filled the control room. Jack pushed again. The drone flew forward, rising over the courtyard wall, zipping above the lawn. He turned. Tilted. Dipped. Soared. For 10 minutes, he was weightless. Free. A man who hadn't moved his legs in a year was now flying across the sky with nothing but thought. When the drone landed, Jack blinked once. Then typed, "More of that, please." The test went viral. The footage, shared by Neuralink with Jack's permission, garnered over 30 million views in 3 days. Headlines exploded: "Paralyzed man pilots drone with his brain." The future of human-device integration is here. Jack Harper is rewriting what's possible. Jack ignored the noise. He didn't need validation. He needed momentum. More people reached out. Veterans. Accident survivors. People with degenerative diseases. Some begged. Others asked questions. A father wrote, "My son was injured in Iraq and hasn't spoken in 5 years. He saw your video. He smiled for the first time since the blast." Jack read every message. Responded to most. The sheer weight of hope in people's words reminded him what he was fighting for. And then one day, a new message came through. It was from the company's board liaison. Elon Musk wanted to meet. Not virtually. In person. Jack didn't know what to expect. He was nervous. Skeptical. But also curious. When Musk entered the room, surrounded by a small team, dressed in a black jacket and his usual distracted intensity, he didn't say much at first. Just nodded at Jack, eyes scanning the equipment. "So," Musk said finally. "You're the guy turning us into cyborgs." Jack blinked once. "You started it," he typed. Musk grinned. "Fair enough." They talked for nearly an hour. About the brain. About software. About the limits of thought and the ethics of control. Musk asked questions. Jack gave blunt answers. He didn't sugarcoat anything. The interface was still unstable. The algorithms needed refinement. The implant was powerful but prone to glitches. Musk took it all in with quiet fascination. "What do you want next?" he asked as the meeting wrapped up. Jack typed without hesitation, "A future where nobody has to live in silence again." Musk nodded slowly. "We'll get there." After he left, the room felt charged. Jack stared at the now empty doorway for a while, then turned to Mia. "Do you believe him?" he typed. She smiled. "I believe you." And that, Jack thought, was the only thing that ever really mattered. The world outside his hospital window kept moving. People rushing to jobs, cars crawling in traffic, planes slicing the sky with white contrails, but inside his room, Jack Harper was relearning time. Not in minutes or hours, but in signals and pulses, in the seconds it took to process thought into intention and intention into command. Time wasn't something he watched anymore, it was something he built with his mind. Neuralink's latest update introduced multi-threaded control, an ability to send simultaneous mental commands to separate systems. It was complex. Dangerous, even, if misused. But Jack pushed forward. Always forward. By now, he had helped redesign 3 parts of the software interface. His feedback loops had become standard in training new users. He wasn't just a patient or a subject anymore, he was part of the machine, woven into the architecture of what Neuralink was becoming. But success came with sacrifice. The more integrated he became with the system, the more the world began to treat him as something other than human. Media outlets called him the pioneer. Engineers at conferences referred to him as the case study. People online asked if he could still feel emotions the same way. Some referred to him only as the brain. Even the way staff looked at him sometimes shifted, with awe that edged on discomfort, as if they weren't sure if they were dealing with a man or a prototype. Jack felt the shift in silence, when conversations paused as he entered a room virtually, when his questions were answered with rehearsed corporate phrases, when even Mia started hesitating before asking how he really felt. He tried to ignore it. Focused on work. Progress. Purpose. But inside, the question began to grow, was he still himself, or just the vessel for a bigger experiment? That unease deepened one night after a board meeting was streamed into his room. Neuralink executives discussed plans to scale up their trials, to bring the chip to hundreds, maybe thousands of patients in the next 5 years. The lead engineer said, "With models like Subject 1, Jack, we can anticipate massive adaptability in cognitive-to-digital transitions." Jack read the transcript twice. Subject 1. He knew it was clinical. Standard terminology. But it hit differently. Like being stripped of identity, replaced with data. That night, he typed out a question to Mia, "Do you think I'm still me?" She blinked, startled. "What do you mean? All this tech. The chip. The signals. Am I more machine now?" She didn't answer right away. Then she touched his hand, gentle. "You were always more than your body, Jack. This didn't change that. It just let the world see it." He blinked twice. "You're sure?" "Every day," she said. But doubt lingered. The following week, the team introduced emotional response calibration. Using EEG pattern analysis, they could detect shifts in mood, anxiety spikes, even fatigue, then adjust interface responsiveness accordingly. It meant smoother performance, but also less autonomy. The system could throttle itself based on how it thought Jack was feeling. He pushed back. "Let me control that," he typed. "I don't want my brain interpreted. I want it obeyed." Dr. Avery hesitated. "We're trying to protect you from burnout. The intensity of control can exhaust you mentally, even when you don't realize it." Jack blinked hard. "That's my decision." Eventually, they compromised. He'd be notified of any automatic adjustments, with the option to override them. Still, the line between assistance and intrusion was getting thinner. Neuralink wasn't just in his skull now, it was beginning to act on his behalf. That was the price of innovation, freedom, filtered through algorithms. But there were still moments that reminded him who he was. One afternoon, Mia rolled in an old guitar. It had been his, years before, tucked away in storage after the accident. She placed it beside the robotic arm and smiled. "I thought maybe you'd want to try." Jack stared at it. A wave of memory crashed into him, bonfires on the beach, calloused fingers, songs played for no one but her. He blinked once. Yes. The Neuralink interface activated the robotic hand. Slowly, awkwardly, it reached for the guitar. It took minutes to get the positioning right, to adjust the grip. But eventually, the pick made contact with the strings. A rough, broken chord echoed through the room. Then another. Then a G major. Mia's eyes welled. "That's my favorite," she whispered. Jack typed, "I remember." It was clumsy. Slow. But it was music. Not digital beeps or speech-to-text. Not progress tracked on charts. Just sound. Just feeling. Just Jack. After that, he started writing songs again, composing them in his head, using the interface to arrange melodies, programming a second robotic arm to create percussion. Music became his escape. His rebellion against the idea that he was just a vessel for data. And it wasn't just him who needed it. Other patients joined in. One woman wrote poetry using the interface. Another began painting with a stylus attached to a drone. Jack helped them all. He built an internal Neuralink forum, coded almost entirely with thought, where patients could share creations, ideas, frustrations. They called it the Mind Space. Within weeks, it had over 100 active users. Dr. Avery marveled at it. "You're building culture inside the network," she said. "This is what we hoped for, but didn't know how to start." Jack blinked once. Humanity doesn't wait for permission. But just as things began to feel like they were turning into something sustainable, something hopeful, the unexpected happened. One morning, Jack woke up and couldn't access the interface. No response. No feedback. Nothing. Panic surged. He tried again. Concentrated. Focused. Still nothing. He blinked repeatedly. Called for Mia. She rushed in, followed by the medical team. Diagnostics ran immediately. The Neuralink chip was operational, but unresponsive. A rare internal error. Emergency protocols kicked in. Jack was flooded with terror. Not just at the thought of going back, but at how easily everything he'd rebuilt could vanish. It took 10 hours for the system to reboot. A firmware patch had failed during an auto-update, scrambling core signal pathways. When it came back online, Jack felt as if he'd been underwater, finally breaking the surface for air. But the damage wasn't technical, it was emotional. For those hours, he'd been voiceless again. Trapped. Erased. That night, he typed, "We need redundancies. Fail-safes. Backups." Dr. Avery nodded. "We're already working on it." But Jack wasn't comforted. He had tasted helplessness again, and it reminded him that no matter how advanced the tech became, the fragility remained. The human mind, augmented or not, was still breakable. He brought it to the board. He asked for open-source access to parts of the interface, so he could help build protective frameworks. At first, they hesitated. IP law. Security risk. Brand management. But Musk overruled them. "Let him," he said. "He's earned it." Jack blinked once. Then typed, "This isn't about me. It's about all of us." The system update that followed bore his name, Project Harper, a module that allowed users to save encrypted mental snapshots that could restore key configurations if a failure occurred. Jack tested it himself. It worked. Afterward, he looked at Mia. Not going back, he typed. She nodded. Never again. But deep down, Jack knew this wasn't the last time he'd face fear. He just hoped that next time, he'd be even stronger. The sun pierced through the high windows of the rehabilitation wing as Jack Harper stared at the interface floating in his field of vision. Despite the warm light, there was a chill running through him. He had stabilized the system. He had helped shape the very software that now powered the next generation of the Neuralink platform. But something was changing, quietly, and not necessarily in the direction he wanted. More and more, he was receiving messages not from scientists, engineers, or patients, but from corporate handlers, marketing teams, legal advisors. They were requesting testimonials, endorsement videos, even licensing for his story. Neuralink was growing, fast. They had announced a second round of clinical trials and an expanded protocol that would bring hundreds of new users into the fold. And with that growth came image control. Jack felt the shift before anyone said it out loud. He was no longer just the pioneer, he was the face of a movement. One morning, a representative from Neuralink's public affairs team arrived in his room. Her name was Cassidy. She was polished, charismatic, and carried a digital tablet she barely looked up from. Jack, she said with a rehearsed smile, we're putting together a campaign. The future begins within. You're central to it, obviously. We want to shoot a docuseries, your journey, the impact, the possibilities. Think Netflix, but bolder. Think global. Jack blinked twice. No. She hesitated, surprised. Is it the format? You'd have creative input. We want to tell the truth, your truth. Jack typed, that truth includes fear. Failure. Loss of identity. I won't sell inspiration porn. Cassidy's smile faltered. We're not asking you to lie. Just, frame the narrative. People need hope. Jack stared at her, then typed slowly, hope isn't marketing. It's earned. She left shortly after, but Jack knew the conversation wasn't over. He understood their logic. Neuralink needed funding. Public support. Regulatory approval. His story helped them cross those thresholds. But he wasn't a brand. He was a man trying to survive a transformation that never paused. Later that week, he met with Dr. Avery in private. Do you ever feel like they're moving faster than the ethics can keep up? He asked her through the interface. She nodded, sighing. Every day. But if we slow down, the window might close. Progress doesn't wait for permission anymore. It just happens. Jack paused. What happens when someone hacks a Neuralink user? What happens when a bad actor sends a command? Dr. Avery's face tightened. We're working on security constantly. But it's a risk, Jack. It always will be. That admission haunted him. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the dim glow of his interface flickering like a second moon. The next day, he began designing something new. A protocol he called Guardian. It was a behavioral firewall, a layer of mental confirmation required before any high-impact command could be executed. Similar to two-factor authentication, but based on brainwave consistency and emotional patterns. Jack worked on it in secret at first. He didn't want to fight Neuralink's team, he wanted to give them a gift they didn't know they needed. Mia noticed the change in him. He was quieter. More focused. He skipped meetings, declined social calls with the Mindspace group. One night, she asked him, "Are you okay?" He blinked once. Then typed, "Not until this is safe for everyone." She nodded and didn't press. Within a month, the Guardian prototype was functional. Jack presented it during a virtual call with the senior engineering team. It's optional, he told them. But vital. The first time someone's system gets hijacked, or they accidentally send a destructive command, the media will bury us. This protects the future. They tested it. Vetted the code. Within a week, they approved it for integration. Guardian went live in the next system update, with Jack's name quietly acknowledged in the patch notes. No media release. No tweet. Just quiet validation. And that was enough. Until the world turned again. A Neuralink user in Arizona, trial participant number 47, suffered a severe seizure during interface testing. It triggered a cascade failure that shut down the hospital's smart systems. The news broke within hours. Headlines screamed brain chip failure disrupts ICU, and the media frenzy was relentless. Within 24 hours, Neuralink's valuation dipped. Senators called for hearings. Ethics panels assembled. Jack watched it all unfold in stunned silence. This wasn't hypothetical anymore. The danger he'd feared had come. Cassidy called again. We need you to speak. Publicly. Calm fears. Remind people that this is about potential, not risk. Jack refused. Not because he didn't believe in Neuralink, but because he refused to be used as a shield. He needed space to process. To think. Mia found him staring at the live feed of the Senate hearing later that night. You could fix this, she said softly. You have more influence than anyone else. Jack blinked once. But what if I'm wrong? She knelt beside his bed. Then be wrong. But don't be silent. The next day, Jack released a video. Unfiltered. Unedited. He activated the interface, faced the camera, and said, in synthetic voice but raw emotion, technology will always move faster than our fears. But that doesn't mean we stop questioning it. I believe in Neuralink, not because it's perfect, but because it's learning. Like me. Like all of us. We will fall. We already have. But we get better. That's the human part. The part no machine can replace. The video went viral. Again. But this time, it wasn't just praised, it was debated, studied, dissected. Jack wasn't a poster child anymore. He was a philosopher. A guide. He was asked to speak at MIT, Stanford, the World AI Summit. He said no to most. He didn't want a stage. He wanted structure. Jack proposed a new initiative, the Link Code. A set of ethical, technological, and personal guidelines for the responsible development and use of brain-machine interfaces. Co-authored by scientists, engineers, users, and ethicists. It wasn't law, but it was a beginning. Neuralink approved the project. Reluctantly at first, then fully. Because they knew Jack was right. Because they had to be better. Jack wrote the first line himself, using nothing but thought, every mind is a universe. Enter with respect. The code took shape over the next 2 months. It covered consent, fail-safes, user autonomy, transparency, emotional safeguards, and more. It was open source. Living. Editable by those who used the system and were affected by it. Jack wasn't just changing Neuralink. He was changing the rules of engagement between human and machine. One afternoon, as he rolled into the garden with Mia, she looked at him and smiled. So what now? You've flown drones, written code, played guitar, saved the system from crashing, and launched a global ethics protocol. What's left? Jack blinked. Then typed slowly, I want to go home. It hit her like a wave. Home. Not the hospital. Not the labs. But the real world. Where traffic hummed and the smell of coffee filled kitchens. Where the wind rustled trees outside open windows. Where Jack could just exist. Not as a miracle. Not as a prototype. But as a man. Dr. Avery approved the transition. His home had been outfitted during the trial for smart integration. He had control. Autonomy. Systems he helped design. As he left the hospital, cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions. But Jack didn't answer. He blinked once. Then twice. A private signal to Mia. "Let's go," she said, and the van pulled away. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Jack Harper's home was a sanctuary and a fortress, a place where technology and humanity merged seamlessly under his command. The walls were lined with adaptive screens, the lights responded to his mental commands, and robotic helpers moved quietly in the background, anticipating his needs. For the first time in years, he felt the fragile balance of control, not just over machines, but over his own life. The transition from hospital to home was more than a change of location, it was a leap toward reclaiming a sense of normalcy that had once seemed impossible. Despite the sophisticated setup, Jack's daily routine was simple: mornings filled with music, afternoons devoted to coding and community building in the mindspace, evenings spent talking with Mia and reflecting on progress. The world outside still moved at a frantic pace, but inside his home, Jack found peace in the rhythm of thoughts made real. Yet, even in this controlled environment, challenges emerged. The neural interface, though revolutionary, was still a fragile bridge between brain and machine. Occasionally, faint glitches appeared, signals slowed, commands overlapped, sensations flickered unpredictably. Each minor malfunction was a reminder of the precariousness beneath the surface of advancement. Jack understood these hiccups were inevitable in any pioneering technology, but the emotional toll was different. The interface wasn't just a tool, it was part of his identity. A failure wasn't just technical, it was existential. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Jack experienced a sudden surge of disorientation. The robotic arm hesitated mid-movement, fingers twitching erratically before freezing entirely. His heart raced in the silence. The interface flashed a warning: signal interference detected. Panic swelled. Could this be a neurological event? Or was someone interfering externally? His mind raced, navigating through possibilities while trying to stabilize commands. Mia was there within seconds, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're okay," she whispered. "We'll get through this." That moment cemented an unspoken truth: no matter how advanced the tech, human connection remained the anchor. Jack's condition was no longer just medical, it was a collective challenge shared by those who loved him and those who fought for safer technology. In the days that followed, Jack and the Neuralink security team launched an exhaustive investigation into the interference. They discovered traces of a sophisticated cyber attack aimed at disrupting neural signals. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community. Suddenly, the futuristic dream came face to face with a new kind of nightmare: vulnerability. News spread fast. Governments issued warnings. Privacy advocates called for stricter regulations. Neuralink intensified security measures, incorporating advanced encryption and real-time threat detection into the interface's core architecture. Jack spearheaded the User Response Unit, a task force made up of patients, engineers, and cybersecurity experts. Their mission: to safeguard the mental realm from intrusion, to protect the sanctity of thought itself. Through long nights and countless data streams, Jack felt the weight of responsibility deepen. Every new layer of defense brought relief but also a sobering realization: technology that intertwined so intimately with the brain demanded unprecedented vigilance. Outside the walls of his home, the world's perception of Neuralink shifted again. The promise of seamless mind control was now tempered by the fear of mind hacking. Investors grew wary, regulatory bodies tightened scrutiny, and the once unshakable momentum wavered. Yet, amidst uncertainty, Jack's resolve hardened. He believed the solution lay not just in technology but in education and empowerment. He expanded the Mindspace platform, transforming it from a creative outlet into a robust support network. Users shared tips for detecting anomalies, techniques for mental self-defense, and stories of resilience. This community became a beacon, proof that while the mind could be vulnerable, it was also capable of collective strength and adaptation. Jack's personal journey mirrored this evolution. The man who once feared losing himself to the machine now embraced the interplay between vulnerability and power. Each glitch was a lesson. Each attack, a challenge to overcome. The neural interface was no longer an experiment, it was a living extension of his will, fragile yet formidable. As weeks turned into months, Jack's leadership in both technology and advocacy gained recognition beyond Neuralink's walls. Universities invited him to lecture on ethics and cybersecurity in brain-machine interfaces. Policymakers sought his insight on regulation. Media outlets portrayed him not just as a pioneer but as a guardian of the future. Through it all, Jack remained grounded by Mia's presence. Her unwavering support, gentle humor, and fierce loyalty were the constants that tethered him to his humanity. One quiet evening, as they sat watching the city lights from his balcony, Jack typed, "What do you think freedom really means?" Mia smiled softly. "Being yourself, no matter the circumstances." Jack blinked thoughtfully. "And what if those circumstances include a chip in your brain?" She took his hand. "Then freedom means choosing how to live with it. On your terms." That exchange marked a turning point. Jack realized that the interface, with all its complexities and risks, was a tool, an extension of choice, not a replacement of self. His mission expanded beyond personal survival to include empowering others to reclaim autonomy in this new era. His work culminated in an ambitious project, the Freedom Protocol, a customizable user experience framework that prioritized consent, transparency, and user control above all else. It allowed users to tailor their neural interface settings deeply, from sensory input to command hierarchy, ensuring that technology adapted to the individual rather than forcing conformity. The Freedom Protocol was a radical departure from previous iterations. It was open source, community-driven, and built on trust. Jack poured heart and mind into it, consulting tirelessly with users across the globe. When the first beta launched, the response was overwhelming. Patients reported feeling more in control, more secure, more human. The Freedom Protocol wasn't just software, it was a philosophy. But not everyone embraced the change. Some investors questioned the slower, user-centric approach. Some engineers warned it complicated development. A faction within Neuralink saw Jack's vision as idealistic and risky. Tensions rose behind closed doors, threatening to fracture the very company that had brought Jack so far. In a pivotal meeting, Elon Musk himself addressed the board. "Innovation without humanity is empty," he said firmly. "Jack's work reminds us why we started. To enhance life, not replace it." The room fell silent. The company aligned behind the Freedom Protocol, recommitting to the principles Jack championed. For Jack, the victory was bittersweet. The battle for ethics and autonomy was ongoing, and the horizon still held uncertainty. But he felt a renewed sense of purpose. One afternoon, as he tested a new interface feature that translated thoughts into 3D holograms, Mia came to him with a letter. It was from a young woman named Emily, a recent Neuralink recipient struggling with the initial adjustment. Her words were raw, hopeful, and candid. "Your videos and work gave me courage. I'm scared, but I know I'm not alone." Jack blinked once, then twice. He typed back immediately. "You're never alone. We build this future together." Moments like these were his true reward. Jack Harper, once paralyzed and voiceless, had become a voice for thousands, a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope, and a guardian of freedom in a world where mind and machine were inseparable. As night fell outside, Jack closed his eyes briefly, feeling the hum of the interface beneath his skull, the steady pulse of life and technology entwined. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, he believed the power to shape it was truly in his hands. Jack Harper's world was expanding again, this time in ways he hadn't anticipated. After months of developing the Freedom Protocol, establishing community networks, and surviving the cyber attack scare, Neuralink announced a bold new phase: commercial deployment. What had once been a clinical trial was now poised to enter the homes, hospitals, and workplaces of everyday Americans. Jack found himself at the heart of this transition, both as a leading user and advocate. Yet with expansion came new pressures. The government required extensive compliance, medical insurance companies debated coverage, and public opinion was divided between awe and skepticism. One afternoon, Jack sat in a conference room with Dr. Avery, Neuralink executives, and policy advisors. The topic was scalability. How could they maintain safety and ethical standards while rolling out the technology to thousands? "We need to automate monitoring," one executive suggested. AI surveillance on the neural networks. Real-time threat detection. Jack's response was swift and measured: automation must respect privacy. Users must have control over their data and who accesses it. The room fell silent. It was a balancing act: innovation versus individual rights. Neuralink's engineers had built extraordinary tools, but the human element was less tangible and harder to quantify. Jack's voice carried the weight of experience and empathy. Outside the meeting, the media circus intensified. News anchors debated the ethics of mind-controlled devices. Social media exploded with hashtags both supporting and attacking the technology. Jack faced a barrage of interviews and public appearances. Each time, he emphasized caution, transparency, and user empowerment. "This technology doesn't replace free will," he said during a televised panel. "It's a new frontier. We must chart it carefully, with respect for each mind involved." Despite the growing spotlight, Jack's personal life remained grounded by Mia and his close circle of mind-space friends. Their online forums evolved into powerful hubs where users shared breakthroughs, fears, and innovations. The community created its own language, a shared culture of resilience and discovery. One evening, Jack logged into a Mindspace chat room and encountered a message from a new user named Elena. She was a veteran who had lost mobility after an injury in service and was now navigating her Neuralink implant. "I feel like I'm living between two worlds," she wrote. "Sometimes the interface feels like a gift. Other times, like a cage." Jack replied thoughtfully, sharing his own early struggles. They exchanged messages over weeks, building a connection that transcended code and circuits. Elena's story deepened Jack's understanding of the psychological challenges users faced. It wasn't just about technology, it was about identity, control, and hope. Meanwhile, Neuralink pushed forward with commercial launches in select cities. Jack traveled to Seattle, Chicago, and Boston to meet new users and share insights. The journey was exhausting but invigorating. He saw firsthand how lives were changing, people regaining independence, rejoining workplaces, connecting in ways impossible before. But he also saw the gaps, those left behind by cost, geography, or skepticism. In Boston, Jack met Rosa, a young woman with ALS who had been denied access due to insurance hurdles. Her frustration was palpable. "This isn't just about technology," she told Jack. "It's about who gets to live fully." Jack promised to help. Back home, he collaborated with advocacy groups to push for expanded coverage and government funding. The fight was complex, tangled in politics and economics. But Jack's growing influence gave weight to the cause. One breakthrough came when a bipartisan bill supporting brain-machine interface accessibility passed in Congress. Jack testified before the committee, speaking from the heart. "This technology can redefine disability," he said. "But only if it's available to all who need it." The passage of the bill was a moment of triumph, celebrated quietly in Jack's living room with Mia and close friends. Yet, the challenges persisted. A new strain of interface fatigue emerged, users reporting mental exhaustion, emotional overwhelm, and subtle cognitive shifts after prolonged use. Neuralink's medical team scrambled to understand the phenomenon. Jack, ever the advocate, called for transparency and deeper research. The company responded by launching an initiative focused on mental health and neural wellness. Jack collaborated with psychologists, neuroscientists, and patients to develop protocols for interface use that balanced power with rest and recovery. Through this, Jack's own relationship with the interface evolved. He learned to listen carefully to his mind's signals, recognizing when to push forward and when to pause. The journey was no longer linear but cyclical: growth, reflection, adjustment. As the technology matured, so did Jack's philosophy. He began writing a memoir, not just a technical recount but a meditation on humanity's evolving relationship with machines. The manuscript explored themes of vulnerability, connection, and transformation. Publishers showed keen interest. Mia encouraged him to share his story widely. "Your journey isn't just about Neuralink," she said. "It's about all of us." One night, as Jack read over a chapter about his early days of paralysis and hope, he paused. Memories flooded back, the despair, the small victories, the faces of those who stood by him. He realized that his story was more than his own. It was a testament to human resilience in the face of profound change. That realization sparked a new idea, a documentary series that would combine personal narratives, expert insights, and behind-the-scenes technology development. Neuralink's PR team cautiously agreed, granting Jack creative control. The production began with intimate interviews and candid moments. Jack insisted on authenticity, refusing scripted moments or staged scenes. The series became a hit, resonating with audiences worldwide. Viewers connected with the raw emotions, the ethical debates, and the glimpses of a future both exciting and uncertain. Jack received messages from parents, caregivers, skeptics, and believers. The dialogue was richer, more nuanced. With this momentum, Jack felt ready for the next chapter, bridging technology with art. He began collaborating with visual artists and musicians to create immersive experiences powered by Neuralink. The goal was to explore the neural interface not just as a tool but as a medium for expression. One installation allowed users to paint with their thoughts, translating neural signals into vibrant digital canvases. Another transformed emotions into symphonies of sound. These projects broke barriers, showing that the mind-machine connection could foster creativity in unprecedented ways. The fusion of tech and art sparked new conversations about identity and humanity. Meanwhile, Neuralink faced ongoing scrutiny. Privacy concerns, regulatory hurdles, and competitive technologies kept the landscape dynamic. Jack navigated these waters with steady resolve, advocating for transparency and collaboration. He connected with other pioneers in AI, biotech, and neuroscience to form a coalition focused on responsible innovation. Together, they drafted a manifesto emphasizing respect for human autonomy and the ethical development of neurotechnology. Jack's life was a balancing act, between advocacy and innovation, hope and caution, public figure and private man. Yet, through it all, he remained grounded by the simple desire to live fully, to connect authentically, and to help others do the same. One afternoon, as he reflected on the whirlwind of change, Jack received a call from Dr. Avery. "We have an opportunity," she said. "A partnership with a leading hospital to integrate Neuralink with physical therapy for stroke survivors." Jack's mind raced with possibilities. This could redefine rehabilitation, offering patients new pathways to regain movement and independence. He agreed immediately to join the project. The collaboration was intense and rewarding. Jack worked alongside therapists, engineers, and patients, co-designing protocols and interfaces. They celebrated small milestones, the first patient to move a hand, the first to walk with support. These moments were bittersweet reminders of the journey's stakes. Through the project, Jack deepened his understanding of the interface's potential and limitations. He realized that technology alone was not enough. Healing required patience, empathy, and community. As the program expanded, Jack and Mia decided to adopt a dog. The new companion brought laughter, comfort, and an unspoken reminder of life's simple joys. Their home was fuller, richer. Looking back, Jack marveled at how far he had come, from the paralysis that once defined him to the man shaping a future where mind and machine coexisted. The road had been fraught with uncertainty and challenge, but it was also paved with hope and resilience. Jack knew the journey wasn't over. The frontier of neural technology stretched endlessly ahead, full of promise and peril. But for the first time, he felt ready, not just to face the future, but to help build it. He smiled softly, thinking of all the minds connected, all the lives transformed. The power wasn't just in the chip, it was in the people. Together, they would write the next chapter. The launch of Neuralink's stroke rehabilitation program marked a new era, a fusion of cutting-edge technology and human determination. Jack Harper found himself once again at the center of this pioneering effort, energized by the tangible progress and deeply moved by the stories of patients reclaiming their lives. At the hospital, the therapy room was a bustling hub of activity, patients wearing sleek neural interface devices, therapists guiding movements, engineers monitoring brain signals in real time. The air buzzed with anticipation and hope. Jack's role was part advisor, part motivator, part patient advocate. He worked closely with Dr. Avery and the rehabilitation team to fine-tune the interface algorithms, ensuring the technology responded intuitively to the unique neural pathways of each patient. One afternoon, Jack met Michael, a middle-aged man who'd suffered a severe stroke, leaving his right side partially paralyzed. Michael's frustration was palpable, his determination fierce. As Jack sat beside him during the first session, he could feel the weight of expectation and fear. The neural interface was new to Michael, an unknown territory of signals, sensations, and potential. They began slowly. Michael focused his thoughts, willing his fingers to twitch, then move. The room held its breath. The robotic arm linked to the interface responded, the fingers curling gently. A smile broke across Michael's face, a mixture of disbelief and triumph. Over weeks, small victories multiplied. Michael regained the ability to grasp a cup, wave to a loved one, and eventually take tentative steps with support. Jack witnessed the profound impact, not just physical recovery but renewed spirit and confidence. Yet, challenges persisted. Neural fatigue, cognitive overload, and emotional hurdles tested patients and therapists alike. Jack advocated for personalized pacing, emphasizing that healing was a journey, not a race. Outside the hospital, the public watched Neuralink's progress with a mixture of awe and skepticism. Media coverage ranged from glowing testimonials to ethical debates questioning the implications of brain-machine integration. Jack navigated interviews, always stressing transparency, patient empowerment, and rigorous safety standards. "This is about enhancing life, not replacing it," he would say. The ethical landscape was complex. Questions arose about consent, long-term effects, and data privacy. Jack engaged with ethicists, legal experts, and patient rights organizations to build frameworks that prioritize dignity and autonomy. This dialogue shaped Neuralink's policies and influenced broader regulatory standards. Meanwhile, the Mindspace community continued to grow, becoming a vital support network for users worldwide. Jack often joined virtual meetings, listening to stories, answering questions, and sharing insights. The connections forged there were a reminder that technology was a human endeavor, shaped by relationships and shared experiences. One evening, during a Mindspace live session, a young woman named Sophia shared her experience. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, she described the neural interface as both liberating and overwhelming. "It's like learning a new language," she said. "Sometimes I feel fluent, other times lost." Jack resonated deeply. He knew the interface demanded patience and perseverance. He encouraged Sophia and others to embrace the journey with compassion for themselves. Inspired by such stories, Jack proposed a new feature for the Freedom Protocol, a mental health toolkit integrated into the interface. It included guided meditations, mood tracking, and cognitive exercises designed to support emotional well-being alongside physical function. Neuralink's team embraced the idea, integrating the toolkit into upcoming software updates. The holistic approach marked a shift in how neurotechnology was perceived, not just as a device but as a partner in overall health. As the rehabilitation program expanded, Jack also encountered setbacks. Some patients experienced unexpected neural inflammation or slowed progress, prompting investigations into device calibration and immune responses. Jack pushed for greater research funding and interdisciplinary collaboration to address these issues. He believed the path forward required humility and relentless inquiry. Back home, Jack's personal life evolved in parallel with his work. Mia's unwavering support remained his anchor. Their dog, Max, brought joy and routine, reminding them of life's simple pleasures. Together, they balanced the demands of advocacy, technology, and everyday living. Jack's memoir took shape alongside his other projects, weaving together personal reflections, technical insights, and broader philosophical questions. He grappled with the meaning of identity in an era where minds could connect directly to machines. One night, while writing a chapter on autonomy, Jack paused. He realized that despite all the advances, the core human desire remained unchanged, to be seen, heard, and understood. That insight deepened his commitment to keeping the human at the center of every innovation. The documentary series continued to garner acclaim, sparking conversations across academic, medical, and public spheres. Jack used the platform to highlight diverse voices, including critics, ethicists, and skeptics. He believed that honest discourse was essential to responsible progress. As Neuralink's technology matured, Jack explored new frontiers, collaborating with artists, educators, and entrepreneurs to imagine applications beyond medicine. From immersive learning environments to creative expression and enhanced communication, the possibilities seemed boundless. Yet, with each breakthrough, questions about societal impact and equitable access loomed large. Jack championed initiatives to bridge the digital divide, ensuring that neurotechnology did not exacerbate existing inequalities. He worked with policymakers and nonprofits to develop programs making Neuralink accessible to underserved communities. The struggle for inclusivity was ongoing but vital. In the midst of this whirlwind, Jack received an unexpected invitation to speak at the World Neurotechnology Summit. The event gathered leaders from around the globe to discuss innovations, challenges, and the future of brain-machine interfaces. Preparing his keynote, Jack reflected on the journey. From a paralyzed man doubting his future to a leader shaping the frontier of human potential. On stage, Jack's words resonated deeply. He spoke of resilience, responsibility, and the profound intersection of technology and humanity. He urged the audience to embrace caution, collaboration, and compassion. The speech was met with standing ovations and sparked widespread media coverage. Following the summit, Jack's influence expanded internationally. He connected with researchers and users across continents, sharing insights and building global alliances. Together, they envisioned a future where neural interfaces could enhance education, healthcare, and daily life worldwide. Despite the growing scope of his work, Jack remained grounded in his original mission, to empower individuals to live fully and authentically. Each success and setback was a step in the ongoing evolution of what it meant to be human in the age of machines. As months turned to years, Jack's story became emblematic of both the promise and complexity of neural technology. His journey was one of courage, innovation, and unwavering hope, a testament to the power of the mind to transcend limitations and redefine possibilities. Looking toward the horizon, Jack knew challenges remained. Ethical dilemmas, technical hurdles, and societal shifts would demand vigilance and empathy. But he was confident that with human-centered innovation, collective wisdom, and resilient spirit, the future held boundless potential. One quiet evening, as Jack sat in his study surrounded by books, holograms, and memories, he typed a message to the Mindspace community: "Our minds are the ultimate frontier. Together, we navigate uncharted territory, forging a path where technology uplifts and empowers. The journey continues, stronger, wiser, united. The screen glowed softly, reflecting his resolve and hope. Jack Harper's story was far from over. It was a living, breathing narrative of discovery and transformation, an invitation to all to imagine what's possible when the mind takes the lead. As Neuralink's technology advanced and its reach expanded, Jack Harper found himself navigating an increasingly complex landscape. The line between human and machine blurred in ways that challenged not just the science but the very essence of identity. One morning, Jack woke to an unexpected message from Elena, the veteran he had connected with months earlier. She was now preparing for her own Neuralink implant surgery. "I'm nervous but hopeful," she wrote. "Your story keeps me grounded." Jack replied quickly, offering encouragement and sharing insights from his journey. The bond between users, spanning distance and diverse experiences, had become a powerful force, a reminder that the technology was as much about community as circuits. Meanwhile, Neuralink's research division pushed the boundaries further, unveiling experimental protocols for sensory feedback. The goal was to enable users not just to control devices with their minds but to actually feel touch, temperature, and texture through the interface. Jack was fascinated. The possibility of restoring sensation to those with paralysis seemed like a miracle inching closer to reality. He volunteered to participate in early trials, eager to explore the next frontier. The first session was surreal. Wearing the latest interface hardware, Jack focused intently as engineers calibrated sensors linked to his neural pathways. Then, a gentle stimulus, a brush of a soft fabric, was simulated through the system. Jack's mind reeled as a faint but distinct sensation blossomed in his fingertips. It was fragile, elusive, yet unmistakably real. "It's like a whisper from my own nerves," he murmured. Over weeks, Jack worked with neuroscientists to refine the sensory feedback loop. The process was painstaking, filled with trial and error. Sometimes the sensations were overwhelming, other times barely perceptible. The team developed exercises to help his brain adapt, retraining neural circuits to interpret the artificial signals. This neuroplasticity was both astonishing and humbling. Outside the lab, Jack's advocacy deepened. He spoke at conferences, emphasizing the importance of sensory restoration for quality of life. "Mobility is vital, but touch connects us to the world in profound ways," he told audiences. "We must prioritize holistic healing." The media spotlight intensified as news of Neuralink's sensory breakthrough spread. Critics raised concerns about the psychological impact of artificial sensations and the risk of neural overload. Jack welcomed the debate, inviting experts to discuss risks openly. He believed transparency was essential to building public trust. Meanwhile, Elena's surgery was successful. Jack kept in close contact, supporting her through the intense recovery and adaptation phase. Elena described her own emerging sensations: warmth, pressure, the faint brush of a breeze. "It's like rediscovering a lost part of myself," she wrote. The shared experiences between Jack and Elena reinforced the communal spirit driving Neuralink's progress. However, with progress came unforeseen challenges. Some users reported emotional side effects, heightened anxiety, mood swings, or detachment, linked to the new sensory inputs. Neuralink's medical team quickly launched studies to understand the phenomena, adjusting protocols to include mental health support. Jack advocated for integrating therapists into the core care team, emphasizing that healing the mind was inseparable from healing the body. The initiative gained traction, leading to the formation of specialized neuro-wellness clinics across pilot cities. These centers combined interface technology with psychological counseling, peer support groups, and holistic therapies. Jack often visited, witnessing the profound transformations taking place. Patients shared stories of reclaiming not just physical abilities but emotional balance and hope. The neuro-wellness model became a beacon of holistic care in neurotechnology. On a personal note, Jack's relationship with Mia flourished amid the whirlwind. Their bond deepened through shared challenges and triumphs. One weekend, they took a trip to the countryside, seeking respite from the relentless pace of innovation and advocacy. Surrounded by nature, Jack felt a profound sense of peace. The gentle rustle of leaves, the warmth of sunlight, the scent of earth, sensations he could now consciously appreciate through his enhanced interface. That moment crystallized the beauty of blending technology with human experience, not replacing nature but enriching connection. Back in the city, Jack's memoir reached its final draft. He reflected on the arc of his journey, from despair to empowerment, isolation to community, paralysis to possibility. Writing had been a catharsis, a way to make sense of profound change. He hoped the memoir would inspire others facing adversity to embrace resilience and innovation. The book deal attracted major publishers, and Jack agreed to a nationwide tour. His message resonated broadly. Technology was a tool, but hope and human connection were the true drivers of transformation. As Jack prepared for the tour, Neuralink announced its next ambitious goal, integrating artificial intelligence to enhance learning and memory through the interface. The prospect was thrilling and daunting. Jack engaged in discussions about the ethical implications, how much augmentation was too much. What boundaries should exist? Could the technology become a gateway to surveillance or manipulation? These questions fueled public discourse. Jack participated in panels and podcasts, urging caution and inclusivity in development. His coalition of experts expanded, advocating for policies safeguarding privacy and autonomy. Meanwhile, Elena's recovery progressed remarkably. She became a vocal advocate, sharing her story to highlight the promise and challenges of Neuralink. Jack admired her courage and resilience. Their friendship, forged through shared experience and support, was a testament to the community's strength. The Mindspace network evolved into a powerful platform for advocacy, education, and innovation. Users co-created resources, hosted virtual events, and supported newcomers. Jack often marveled at the collective wisdom and compassion emerging from the network. One day, a Mindspace forum featured a story from a young man named Leo, a student with dyslexia using the interface to enhance reading comprehension. His breakthrough was inspiring, a glimpse of neurotechnology's potential to transform education and unlock hidden abilities. Jack connected with Leo, exploring partnerships with educators and researchers to expand such applications. The journey of Neuralink was no longer just medical, it was cultural, societal, and deeply human. Yet, challenges remained. Regulatory battles, public mistrust, and technical hurdles tested Neuralink's resilience. Jack navigated these with steadfast commitment, drawing strength from community and purpose. As his book tour began, Jack met people whose lives had been touched by Neuralink, from veterans regaining mobility to parents communicating with nonverbal children. Their stories fueled his resolve. At a major event in New York, Jack stood on stage and shared a simple yet profound truth: technology is not magic. It is an extension of our humanity. When we use it with empathy and responsibility, it can illuminate the darkest corners of our potential. The crowd erupted in applause, many moved to tears. Backstage, Jack reflected on how far he had come, from a man defined by loss to a beacon of hope and possibility. The journey was far from over, but the path was clear. As Jack looked toward the future, he envisioned a world where mind and machine worked in harmony to elevate human experience. A future where paralysis was no longer a sentence, where sensory richness was restored, where learning was limitless. Yet, above all, a future where every person's dignity and autonomy were honored. In the quiet moments that followed the tour, Jack often returned to his study, surrounded by books and memories. He would log into Mindspace, joining conversations that reminded him that progress was not just measured in breakthroughs, but in connection, empathy, and shared humanity. One evening, as Jack prepared to rest, he received a message from Mia: "What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?" He smiled, recalling the line that had launched their journey together so many years ago. He typed back: "Hope, connection, and the belief that our minds, together, can change the world." The screen glowed softly, a quiet beacon of the continuing story. Jack Harper's world had transformed beyond what he once imagined possible, yet new challenges awaited on the horizon. Neuralink had announced a revolutionary pilot program, direct brain-to-brain communication. The concept was staggering. To allow two minds to connect and exchange thoughts, sensations, or emotions in real time, bypassing traditional speech or typing. Jack was invited to participate in this next phase alongside Elena and several other users. The first test session took place in a sterile yet high-tech room filled with monitors, wires, and advanced interface hardware. Jack sat opposite Elena, their Neuralink implants activated and linked through a secure network. At first, the experience was subtle, a sense of shared presence, a flicker of emotion, a whisper of a thought. Then, more vivid, Elena's excitement as she described a childhood memory, Jack's surprise at feeling her nostalgia as if it were his own. It was exhilarating and unnerving. The boundaries of individuality blurred. What did it mean to truly share a mind? Over the following weeks, Jack and the team refined the technology. They learned to modulate signal strength, filter noise, and respect privacy boundaries. The experience grew richer, a silent conversation unfolding in the spaces between neurons. The promise was immense: communication for those who couldn't speak, deep empathy between loved ones, new forms of collaboration. Yet, Jack remained cautious. The ethical questions weighed heavily. How would society handle such intimacy? What protections would guard against misuse or intrusion? Jack advocated strongly for clear consent protocols and secure encryption to preserve autonomy and safety. Neuralink's leadership listened, incorporating these concerns into their development roadmap. Meanwhile, Jack and Elena's connection deepened through their shared brain-to-brain sessions. They described it as a profound kind of understanding that transcended words, moments of pure empathy, mutual support, and even laughter felt directly in the mind. Outside the lab, however, public opinion was divided. Some hailed the technology as the next leap in human evolution, while others feared it as a threat to privacy and individuality. Media outlets ran heated debates, and Jack found himself repeatedly explaining the safeguards and intentions behind the innovation. He emphasized that the technology was designed to empower, not to control or invade. As Neuralink prepared to expand brain-to-brain trials to a wider group, Jack helped develop training programs to educate users about ethical use, emotional readiness, and technical operation. The goal was to foster a responsible, informed community. At the same time, Jack's personal reflections deepened. He considered how sharing thoughts directly might affect relationships, identity, and mental health. What did it mean to protect one's inner world when minds were linked? He wrote essays exploring these questions, published in neuroscience journals and mainstream media, sparking broad conversations. On a quieter note, Jack's bond with Mia grew even stronger. They found joy in small rituals, evening walks, cooking meals together, moments of quiet connection. Jack cherished these grounding experiences amid the whirlwind of innovation. One afternoon, Jack received news that a prominent journalist wanted to feature him in a documentary exploring the future of neurotechnology. The project aimed to humanize the story behind the headlines, revealing the hopes, fears, and daily realities of users like Jack. He agreed enthusiastically, seeing it as an opportunity to reach a wider audience with a message of hope and responsibility. Filming began with intimate interviews capturing Jack's journey, from the accident that changed his life to the transformative power of Neuralink and the emerging frontier of brain-to-brain communication. The crew also filmed sessions with Elena and other participants, showcasing the technology in action and the community it had built. During one particularly moving shoot, Jack and Elena connected mind to mind, sharing memories of their earliest challenges and their growing optimism. The camera caught their unspoken exchange, a powerful testament to the potential of shared humanity amplified by technology. As the documentary aired, public response was mixed but passionate. Viewers expressed awe at the advances, curiosity about the ethical issues, and a deep emotional connection to the personal stories. Jack took part in panel discussions and online Q&A sessions, engaging with audiences worldwide. He stressed the importance of balancing innovation with empathy, transparency, and inclusivity. Meanwhile, Neuralink continued to evolve its technology, announcing breakthroughs in memory enhancement. Early trials suggested the possibility of improving recall and learning speed through targeted neural stimulation. Jack volunteered to test these new features, eager to explore the potential while mindful of risks. The sessions were intense. Jack's brain adapted to new patterns of stimulation, sometimes resulting in vivid flashes of past memories or accelerated comprehension during reading exercises. The experience was exhilarating yet exhausting. Scientists monitored cognitive load closely, adjusting protocols to prevent overstimulation or fatigue. Jack documented his experiences meticulously, sharing insights with the research team to optimize safety and efficacy. Outside the lab, Jack's advocacy expanded into education. He partnered with schools and universities to explore how Neuralink's technology could support diverse learners, including those with disabilities or learning differences. Pilot programs incorporated neural interfaces to enhance focus, memory, and communication. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, but also highlighted challenges in accessibility, equity, and ethical use. Jack championed policies ensuring that advancements did not widen educational disparities but rather offered new opportunities for all. At home, Jack and Mia discussed their hopes for the future, what it meant to live in a world where mind and machine were increasingly intertwined. They dreamed of a society that valued empathy as much as innovation, where technology served to deepen human connection rather than isolate. One evening, Jack joined a global virtual summit on neuroethics. Experts debated regulation, consent, data security, and the social implications of brain-machine interfaces. Jack spoke passionately about the need for interdisciplinary collaboration and public engagement to navigate this uncharted territory responsibly. The summit concluded with a shared commitment to develop frameworks that respected individual rights and promoted collective well-being. As the year progressed, Jack observed how Neuralink's technology touched lives in unexpected ways. Artists used brain interfaces to create immersive experiences, athletes enhanced training through neural feedback, and caregivers communicated with nonverbal loved ones more effectively. The technology was no longer confined to medical use but blossoming into diverse expressions of human potential. Yet, Jack remained vigilant about challenges. Cases of device malfunction, data breaches, and psychological strain underscored the need for robust safeguards and ongoing research. Jack worked with Neuralink's safety team to develop rapid response protocols and user education to address these risks. He believed that acknowledging and learning from failures was essential to sustainable progress. As the neural interface community matured, Jack saw the emergence of a new culture, one that valued openness, collaboration, and shared responsibility. Users formed local chapters, organized events, and contributed to open-source projects improving the technology. Jack felt proud to be part of this evolving ecosystem. One particularly memorable event was the annual Neuralink User Summit, where hundreds gathered to share breakthroughs, challenges, and stories. Jack delivered the keynote, recounting his own journey and emphasizing the importance of hope, resilience, and ethical stewardship. The summit ended with a communal declaration, a pledge to harness neurotechnology for the greater good. In quieter moments, Jack reflected on the personal transformations he had undergone. From a man paralyzed and isolated to a leader and advocate in a global movement, his identity had evolved profoundly. Yet, he remained grounded by core values, compassion, humility, and a commitment to serve others. Jack often revisited the early question that had launched his story: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? His answer had grown richer with experience. Loss could become a catalyst for connection, despair a seed of hope. Technology could be a bridge, not a barrier. As he prepared to close his memoir, Jack included a final message: our minds are not just machines to be optimized, they are the seed of our humanity, the wellspring of our dreams. As we integrate with technology, let us never forget the power of empathy, courage, and shared purpose to guide us forward. The journey continued, unfolding with each new breakthrough and challenge. Jack Harper's story was a living testament to the possibilities when innovation meets heart, and when the mind is freed to reach beyond limits once thought absolute. The next phase of Jack Harper's journey with Neuralink introduced him to a new frontier, integrating the technology with virtual reality environments. The Neuralink team had developed a sophisticated VR platform designed to interact directly with the brain interface, offering users immersive experiences controlled by thought alone. Jack was among the first to test the system, eager to explore how this integration could expand the boundaries of possibility for people with paralysis and beyond. Upon entering the VR chamber, Jack felt a strange thrill. The room was minimalist but equipped with advanced sensors and neural stimulators. Once the system activated, Jack's consciousness was transported to a vivid digital landscape, an open meadow under a wide blue sky, the sun warm on his virtual skin. For the first time since his injury, Jack experienced a sensation of full mobility, running across grass, feeling the breeze on his face, even tasting the air as if it were real. This simulation was not just visual or auditory but deeply sensory, thanks to Neuralink's ongoing advancements in feedback loops. Jack moved effortlessly, guided solely by intention, the interface translating neural commands into fluid motion. The emotional impact was profound. In the virtual world, Jack felt free, unbound by the limitations of his body. Yet, the experience was bittersweet, a reminder of what he had lost and what technology was now striving to restore. Over subsequent sessions, Jack explored diverse VR realms, underwater scenes where he swam with dolphins, mountaintops with panoramic views, bustling cities filled with life. Each environment was tailored to elicit different emotional responses, from calm and reflection to exhilaration and social connection. Neuralink's developers aimed not only to offer escape but also therapeutic benefits. Virtual reality combined with neural control became a tool for physical rehabilitation, cognitive training, and emotional healing. Jack participated in guided exercises designed to stimulate neural pathways and improve brain plasticity. He noticed subtle improvements, sharper focus, enhanced mood, and moments of spontaneous movement signals emerging from his implant. Outside the lab, Jack and Mia experimented with personal VR sessions, sharing virtual spaces where distance and disability faded into irrelevance. They met in serene gardens or lively cafes, their avatars indistinguishable from reality. This new dimension enriched their relationship, opening possibilities for connection that transcended physical barriers. The potential applications of VR and Neuralink technology soon expanded beyond personal use. Jack joined initiatives partnering with artists, educators, and therapists to create immersive experiences for broader audiences. One project involved a virtual museum showcasing the history of neurotechnology and stories of users' transformations. Visitors could walk through interactive exhibits, experiencing firsthand the sensations and challenges of living with neural interfaces. The museum became a hub for awareness and empathy, breaking down stigma and inspiring support. Meanwhile, Jack worked closely with clinicians to design VR-based rehabilitation protocols for stroke survivors, veterans, and others with neurological impairments. Early trials showed promising results, with patients demonstrating improved motor control and reduced anxiety. Jack advocated for widespread adoption of such therapies, emphasizing the importance of accessibility and user-centered design. Yet, alongside the excitement, concerns arose. Some users reported disorientation, sensory overload, or difficulty distinguishing virtual from real experiences after extended sessions. Mental health professionals warned of potential dependency or escapism risks. Neuralink responded by implementing safety guidelines, session limits, and integrated psychological support. Jack supported these measures, emphasizing the balance between innovation and well-being. At a public conference, Jack spoke candidly about the emotional complexities of VR integration. The virtual world can be a sanctuary, a playground, a classroom, he said. But it must not become a prison. We must remember to live fully in the present, with technology as our ally, not our master. Jack's message resonated deeply, sparking thoughtful dialogue among users, developers, and policymakers. The Neuralink community continued to grow, united by a shared vision of technology enhancing life without diminishing humanity. On a more personal level, Jack confronted new emotional challenges as VR opened unexpected memories and feelings. Immersive simulation sometimes triggered vivid recollections of his pre-accident life, joyful moments with family, the exhilaration of hiking, the simple pleasures of physical freedom. These experiences brought both comfort and sorrow, prompting Jack to seek counseling through the Neuro Wellness program. Therapy helped him integrate these emotions, fostering resilience and self-compassion. The therapeutic journey underscored the inseparable link between mind and body, technology and spirit. Jack realized that healing was not a destination but an ongoing process, shaped by courage and connection. As Neuralink advanced, interdisciplinary collaborations flourished. Jack partnered with cognitive scientists, artists, ethicists, and engineers to explore new frontiers. Together, they envisioned applications ranging from enhancing creativity and learning to supporting mental health and social cohesion. One innovative project involved using Neuralink and VR to facilitate empathy training, allowing participants to experience perspectives of others facing disability, discrimination, or trauma. Early feedback was powerful. Users reported increased understanding and compassion. Jack saw these initiatives as crucial steps toward a more inclusive and empathetic society. Meanwhile, regulatory frameworks struggled to keep pace with rapid technological progress. Jack engaged with lawmakers, advocating for policies that balanced innovation with privacy, security, and human rights. He stressed the importance of involving diverse stakeholders, users, scientists, ethicists, and communities, in shaping the future of neurotechnology. His efforts contributed to the formation of a multidisciplinary advisory council tasked with guiding responsible development. Through public talks and media appearances, Jack emphasized that technology was a tool shaped by human values. He urged vigilance against commercialization that prioritized profit over people. "We must build a future where technology amplifies dignity and freedom, not exploitation," he said. The journey was not without setbacks. Neuralink faced technical glitches, funding challenges, and occasional public backlash fueled by fear or misinformation. Jack addressed these openly, using setbacks as learning opportunities and reaffirming commitment to transparency and collaboration. One particularly difficult moment came when a high-profile malfunction caused a temporary halt in VR integration trials. Jack joined the response team, communicating directly with affected users and working to restore trust. The experience reinforced the need for robust safety measures and ongoing dialogue. In the quieter hours, Jack reflected on the profound ways Neuralink had reshaped his identity. Once defined by loss and limitation, he now saw himself as a bridge between worlds, human and machine, past and future, vulnerability and strength. The technology was a conduit for transformation, but the true power lay in human spirit. As he prepared for a keynote speech at the International Neurotechnology Summit, Jack felt both humility and determination. He planned to share not only technical advances but also the human stories at the heart of the movement. His message was clear: innovation must be rooted in empathy and guided by ethical wisdom. The day of the summit arrived. Jack took the stage before a diverse audience of scientists, engineers, patients, advocates, and policymakers. He recounted his personal journey, the accident, the despair, the emergence of Neuralink as a lifeline and a community. He described the breakthroughs in VR integration, the emotional complexities, the promise and perils of direct brain-to-brain communication. Throughout, he emphasized the central role of hope and connection. "Technology alone is not enough," he said. "It is our shared humanity that gives it meaning and direction." The speech was met with standing ovations and sparked rich discussions throughout the event. Jack felt energized, ready to continue forging pathways toward a future where mind and machine worked in harmony for the benefit of all. After the summit, Jack returned to his family and neuro-wellness community, continuing to support others navigating the evolving landscape of neural technology. The path ahead remained uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities. Yet, Jack knew that with compassion, courage, and collaboration, they could shape a future where disability was no longer a barrier, and technology was a beacon of possibility. In quiet moments, Jack often revisited the words that had first inspired him to share his story. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The answer remained constant: hope, connection, and the belief that together, the mind could overcome any limit. As Jack Harper continued to explore the expanding capabilities of Neuralink, a new frontier emerged, using the technology not just for control or communication, but to unlock creativity in ways previously unimaginable. Neuralink's research team had been experimenting with direct neural stimulation to enhance creative thinking and artistic expression. Jack, who had always loved music and art before his accident, was eager to see how this could change his relationship with creativity now that his body's limitations no longer bound him. The initial sessions involved simple exercises to stimulate neural regions associated with imagination, emotion, and problem-solving. Jack found the experience both fascinating and surreal. At times, he felt his thoughts flowing more freely, images and melodies surfacing spontaneously in his mind. The interface allowed him to externalize these creations directly into digital formats, composing music, sketching images, even writing poetry. Simply through neural commands. The first time Jack played a song using only his mind, the emotional impact was profound. It was as if a door had opened inside him, connecting the essence of who he was with a new, boundless form of expression. The music was imperfect but deeply personal, a raw reflection of his feelings, memories, and hopes. Over weeks, Jack honed this new ability. The Neuralink team developed intuitive software that translated his neural impulses into complex digital art and soundscapes. He collaborated with artists and musicians who helped refine these tools and incorporate them into their own creative processes. This fusion of human intuition and technological precision sparked innovative projects across disciplines. Jack's own work evolved, blending his story of resilience with experimental artistry. He shared these pieces in online galleries and concerts, touching audiences worldwide. Feedback was overwhelming. Many were moved by the authenticity and emotional depth conveyed purely through thought-driven creation. Beyond personal fulfillment, Jack saw the therapeutic potential of neural creativity. He partnered with mental health professionals to develop programs where users could explore and express emotions safely through brain-controlled art. These sessions offered a powerful outlet for trauma, anxiety, and depression, fostering healing through self-expression. Jack became an advocate for integrating neurotechnology with mental health care, emphasizing the importance of holistic approaches. At the same time, challenges surfaced. Some users experienced emotional overwhelm or frustration when creative impulses outpaced their ability to control or complete projects. Neuralink engineers worked to develop feedback mechanisms and user interfaces that allowed more precise modulation and gradual skill building. Jack participated actively in testing and improving these features, drawing on his own experiences. Ethical considerations also grew more complex. Questions about authorship, originality, and privacy arose as neural creativity blurred lines between individual agency and technological mediation. Jack engaged in public forums and academic panels to discuss these issues, advocating for frameworks that honored human creativity while recognizing the novel role of technology as collaborator and tool. The cultural impact of neural creativity began to ripple outward. Educational institutions incorporated Neuralink-assisted art programs into curricula, empowering students with diverse abilities to explore new modes of expression. Museums and galleries hosted exhibitions showcasing brain-driven artwork, challenging traditional definitions of art and artist. Jack often attended these events, reflecting on the evolving relationship between mind, technology, and culture. Despite the rapid advances, Jack remained grounded in his personal journey. The creative process was not just about output but about connection, to oneself, to others, and to the world. He continued to balance his public advocacy with quiet moments of introspection and family life with Mia. They found new ways to connect through his brain-driven art and music, sharing intimate experiences that deepened their bond. One evening, Jack composed a piece inspired by their journey, an evocative melody that captured both struggle and hope, loss and renewal. Sharing it with Mia brought tears and smiles, a testament to the power of creativity to transcend circumstance. As Neuralink expanded its research, the potential for cognitive enhancement through neural stimulation attracted widespread attention. Jack joined discussions about the ethical and social implications of enhancing memory, attention, or intelligence beyond typical human capacity. He emphasized the need for equitable access and safeguards against coercion or social pressure. Jack's advocacy highlighted the importance of defining enhancement not just in terms of ability but in terms of well-being and human flourishing. During a landmark international symposium on neuroethics, Jack presented a keynote titled "The Mind in the Machine: Creativity, Compassion, and Responsibility." He argued that neurotechnology must be developed with a clear moral compass, centered on respect for autonomy and the richness of human experience. The speech resonated with diverse audiences, sparking collaborations between technologists, ethicists, artists, and policymakers. Back home, Jack's neural creativity journey inspired new friendships and collaborations. He connected with other users who explored brain-driven art, forming a virtual community that shared tips, projects, and support. Together, they organized online exhibitions and concerts, democratizing access to creative expression. Jack marveled at the vibrant ecosystem emerging around Neuralink, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Yet, amid these achievements, Jack confronted moments of doubt and vulnerability. The weight of public attention, the rapid pace of innovation, and the persistent challenges of living with paralysis sometimes overwhelmed him. He leaned on Mia, friends, and mental health support, reaffirming the importance of balance and self-care. These experiences deepened his empathy and informed his advocacy for comprehensive user support services. As the chapter of neural creativity unfolded, Jack remained committed to the core message that had guided him since the beginning: technology is a tool shaped by human values, and its greatest power lies in enhancing connection, dignity, and hope. He often returned to the words that had started his story online: hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Jack, the answer was creativity, the spark that ignited courage, fueled healing, and illuminated the path forward beyond limits once thought insurmountable. The journey continued, full of promise and complexity, as mind and machine danced together toward a future where the human spirit could soar. The transformation that Jack Harper experienced with Neuralink technology had profound implications beyond his personal journey. As word spread about the possibilities of brain-machine interfaces, the medical community grew increasingly interested in how this technology could revolutionize treatments for neurological disorders and spinal cord injuries. Jack found himself not only a patient and advocate but also a collaborator in pioneering clinical research. In this chapter, the focus shifted toward bridging experimental technology with everyday medical practice. Jack participated in multi-center trials that tested Neuralink's applications for patients with varying degrees of paralysis, epilepsy, and even early-stage Alzheimer's disease. The goal was to assess safety, efficacy, and long-term benefits while refining device protocols for broader use. The trials brought together neurologists, rehabilitation specialists, engineers, and patients, fostering a multidisciplinary approach that Jack deeply valued. Early sessions focused on evaluating Neuralink's ability to restore basic motor functions and sensory feedback. Patients learned to control robotic limbs, type messages, and operate wheelchairs directly through thought. The results were often inspiring. People who had lost independence gradually regained control over daily activities, rediscovering agency and self-esteem. Jack often mentored newer participants, sharing his experiences and encouraging patience and perseverance. He witnessed firsthand the emotional highs and lows of this process, understanding that progress was rarely linear but always meaningful. Alongside motor restoration, Neuralink's potential for pain management emerged as a crucial area of research. Chronic pain is a common and debilitating consequence of many neurological conditions, and traditional treatments often fall short or cause undesirable side effects. By targeting specific neural circuits, Neuralink devices showed promise in modulating pain signals at the source. Jack contributed to qualitative studies exploring how direct neural modulation affected patients' quality of life. Many reported dramatic reductions in pain intensity and improvements in mood and sleep. This breakthrough offered hope for millions suffering from intractable pain and highlighted the technology's multifaceted benefits. Cognitive enhancement and memory restoration were other frontiers attracting attention. Some trial participants with mild cognitive impairment demonstrated improved recall and attention after Neuralink-assisted therapies. While these findings were preliminary, they suggested that targeted brain stimulation might help delay or mitigate the effects of neurodegenerative diseases. Jack engaged with researchers exploring ethical frameworks for such interventions, advocating for careful consideration of risks, consent, and long-term impacts. The increasing complexity of Neuralink's clinical applications required robust infrastructure and collaboration. Jack helped establish a network of centers of excellence dedicated to neurotechnology research and patient care. These hubs provided integrated services, including device implantation, rehabilitation, psychological support, and social reintegration. This holistic model aimed to maximize patient outcomes and quality of life. The network also prioritized accessibility, striving to reduce disparities in who could benefit from cutting-edge treatments. Throughout these developments, Jack maintained a focus on patient voices and lived experiences. He participated in advisory panels and public forums, stressing that technology must serve people's needs, values, and dignity. Jack's own story became emblematic of this philosophy, a testament to the power of hope, innovation, and human connection. However, integrating Neuralink into mainstream medicine was not without challenges. Regulatory hurdles, reimbursement policies, and training requirements slowed adoption in some regions. Skepticism from parts of the medical community and public also persisted, fueled by concerns over safety, privacy, and ethical boundaries. Jack addressed these concerns openly, promoting transparency and dialogue. He emphasized the importance of ongoing research and evidence-based practice. As clinical use expanded, Jack witnessed inspiring stories of transformation. One participant, a young woman paralyzed from a car accident, regained the ability to feed herself and communicate through Neuralink-controlled devices. Her renewed independence brought joy and relief to her family. Another patient with epilepsy experienced significant seizure reduction through adaptive neural stimulation, improving her ability to work and socialize. These real-life impacts underscored the technology's potential to change lives profoundly. At the same time, Jack was keenly aware of the need for psychological support alongside physical rehabilitation. The transition to using brain-machine interfaces posed identity questions and emotional adjustments. Jack advocated for integrated mental health services as a core component of treatment programs. His own experiences with therapy and peer support informed these efforts. The journey also raised complex philosophical questions about what it means to be human in an age of neural augmentation. Jack engaged with ethicists and thinkers exploring topics like agency, autonomy, and the nature of consciousness. These dialogues enriched public understanding and shaped responsible innovation. In his personal life, Jack continued to nurture relationships with Mia and loved ones, grounding his work in connection and gratitude. He balanced public engagement with quiet moments of reflection, recognizing the importance of self-care amid his busy schedule. Neuralink's expanding capabilities also inspired Jack to explore new vocational paths. He began collaborating with tech companies to develop accessible work environments and tools powered by neural control. These initiatives aim to reduce barriers and open employment opportunities for people with disabilities, promoting inclusion and economic empowerment. Jack's advocacy reached government levels as well. He testified before congressional committees, sharing insights on the promise and challenges of neurotechnology. His testimony helped inform policy decisions on funding, regulation, and support services. Jack's voice added a crucial perspective grounded in lived experience and scientific understanding. As Neuralink technology matured, discussions about data security and privacy intensified. Jack joined efforts to establish stringent protections for neural data, recognizing the deeply personal nature of brain information. He championed transparency in data use and user consent, pushing for technologies that gave users control over their own neural information. These efforts aligned with broader movements for digital rights and ethical AI. Despite progress, Jack remained mindful of the journey ahead. Neuralink was still evolving, with many technical and societal questions unresolved. He encouraged patience and resilience, emphasizing that transformative innovation requires time, collaboration, and humility. Jack's story continued to inspire hope and action in communities worldwide. Reflecting on the trajectory from his accident to becoming a global advocate and pioneer, Jack felt a deep sense of purpose. The technology had not only restored abilities but transformed his identity and mission. He remained committed to advancing neurotechnology responsibly, ensuring it served humanity's highest values. As the chapter closed, Jack prepared for the next phase, exploring Neuralink's potential to enhance social connection and communication beyond physical limits. He believed that by harnessing the power of the mind, technology could help build bridges of understanding and compassion in an increasingly complex world. And so, Jack Harper's journey with Neuralink continued, a story of resilience, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of a future where no mind was limited by the body. Jack Harper's journey with Neuralink had transformed his life in ways he never could have imagined. Yet, as his physical capabilities improved and his public profile grew, a new challenge emerged, redefining communication itself. Neuralink was no longer just about controlling devices or restoring mobility, it was about breaking down the barriers between minds, fostering connection beyond speech and gesture. The idea of direct brain-to-brain communication was becoming a tangible possibility. This frontier fascinated Jack deeply. He imagined a world where thoughts, emotions, and ideas could be shared instantly, bypassing misunderstandings and the limitations of language. Early experiments with Neuralink had already demonstrated that brain signals could be transmitted and decoded with remarkable accuracy. Now, researchers were exploring ways to connect multiple Neuralink devices, enabling real-time neural exchange between individuals. Jack volunteered to participate in these pioneering studies, eager to explore what it meant to communicate on a purely mental level. The initial trials involved simple exchanges, a shared image, a feeling, a basic thought. Jack and another participant, Claire, a neuroscientist with a similar Neuralink implant, connected their devices in a controlled environment. At first, the experience was disorienting. Jack described it as hearing a voice inside my head that wasn't my own. Yet, as they practiced, the communication became clearer, more intuitive. They could share mental snapshots of memories or convey emotions with subtle neural cues. The sensation was profound and intimate, surpassing traditional conversation. Jack marveled at the potential for empathy and understanding. If people could truly experience each other's inner worlds, conflict and alienation might diminish. He envisioned applications beyond personal communication, collaborative problem-solving, collective creativity, even new forms of education and therapy. However, the technology was in its infancy, and challenges were abundant. Neural signals are complex, individual, and often ambiguous. Decoding and encoding thoughts without distortion required advanced algorithms and immense computational power. Privacy and consent were paramount concerns. Jack and the research team worked closely with ethicists to develop protocols ensuring that neural sharing was always voluntary, secure, and respectful. The psychological impact was another consideration. Sharing intimate thoughts could be overwhelming or invasive. Jack advocated for gradual, user-controlled interfaces that allowed people to choose what and how much to share. As trials progressed, Jack and Claire experimented with more nuanced communication. They could exchange feelings of calm or excitement, images of places they loved, even simple concepts like trust or hope. These exchanges transcended language barriers and cultural differences, hinting at a new universal language rooted in human experience. Public interest soared. Neuralink's brain-to-brain communication trials attracted media attention and sparked widespread debate. Some hailed it as a breakthrough for human connection, others voiced fears about mind control or loss of privacy. Jack took a leading role in addressing these concerns openly. He emphasized transparency, education, and the importance of ethical guardrails. Jack also shared personal reflections on the profound responsibility that came with such intimate technology. Maintaining boundaries and honoring individuality were essential to preserving the humanity at the heart of neural communication. Outside the lab, Jack's relationship with Mia deepened as they explored this new dimension together. Mia underwent Neuralink implantation, eager to share thoughts and feelings directly with Jack. Their conversations gained new layers of depth and subtlety. Moments of joy, frustration, and love were conveyed in ways words could never capture. This intimate connection strengthened their bond and brought healing to wounds left by years of physical and emotional separation. The couple's story inspired many others to consider neural communication as a path to greater understanding and compassion. Jack organized workshops and support groups to help couples, families, and friends navigate the emerging technology with care and mindfulness. Meanwhile, Jack's advocacy expanded to include calls for inclusive access. He pushed for Neuralink's affordability and availability across socioeconomic lines, warning that neural communication should not become a privilege reserved for the wealthy or technologically elite. Jack believed that bridging minds was a human right, a tool for collective growth and peace. As the technology evolved, new applications emerged. In education, students with Neuralink implants could share learning experiences with teachers and peers instantly. Collaborative projects flourished, harnessing the power of synchronized thought. In mental health, therapists could gain deeper insights into patients' emotional states, improving diagnosis and treatment. Creative collaboration took on new meaning, with artists and musicians co-creating in real-time neural harmony. Jack worked with experts to develop best practices, ensuring the technology empowered rather than overwhelmed users. Despite the excitement, Jack remained cautious. Neuralink's brain-to-brain communication raised questions about identity, autonomy, and consent that society had never faced before. Jack called for ongoing dialogue among technologists, ethicists, policymakers, and the public to shape a future where neural connection uplifted humanity without eroding individual dignity. As the chapter drew to a close, Jack reflected on how far he had come, from a man paralyzed and isolated to a pioneer of mind-to-mind connection. The journey was far from over, but each breakthrough brought new hope and possibility. Neuralink was not just restoring lost abilities, it was expanding the very nature of human experience. For Jack, the power to share thoughts directly was a profound gift, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, the human spirit could find new ways to reach out, connect, and thrive. And so, with determination and humility, Jack Harper stepped boldly into the next chapter of his life, ready to help shape a world where minds could truly meet, hearts could truly understand, and love could flow freely beyond the limits of body and speech. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?